would like to understand exactly like how the Hadoop is will be helpful for the the big data perspective.
All right, works.
Yeah, that should be fine, I believe.
Yeah. Mohini, Nutan, Vamsi. Jay.
Hi, my name is Nutan.
Nutan. Okay, sure. Hi, Nutan.
Hi.
Yeah.
I'm a WebSphere admin.
You're a WebSphere admin. Okay.
I want to learn basically Hadoop administration.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So we have what do you call Malli, who's right now I think some issue with her mic. So she's again WebSphere app server admin. I think somebody needs to mute the mic because the voice is echoing. Okay, fantastic. I'll do one thing. I'll put everyone on mute, and whenever we just start with something, we'll just what do you call unmute them, or we'll do that after this thing. So see. And Malli is also interested in Hadoop administration. Good. Yeah. Who's next? Mohini. Would you want to go ahead? So seems even Vamsi has some issues with the mic. Vamsi, if you could just put on chat, I would introduce you to the group. Hello. So Jay, Mohini, Vamsi, if you guys could put your introduction on chat, I should be basically putting it here so that we can share with everyone. Okay. So Vamsi is a middleware admin. Is a middleware admin, and she's looking for a career change, exploring Hadoop for the same. Okay, so the name is Vamsi. Vamsi, okay. Okay, Jay. So we have Jay, who's right now a Hyperion lead. And what Jay is looking for is upgrading and learning new stuff to stay on the edge of new tech. Perfect. So we have Mohini next. Yeah, please go ahead, Mohini. Mohini, please go ahead. Yeah.
Ravi,
Hello.
she's working as a system analyst, Ravi. So she wanted
System
to learn.
analyst. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. She's a system analyst and wants to know about Hadoop. All right, we are pretty much done with the introduction. So before we get into you know, the course and talk about the contents and basically few slides, let's talk about, you know, why there is so much buzz around Hadoop and why, you know, data is so hot and why it is here to stay. Now, Hadoop, as of now, a lot of people feel that it is a buzzword and, you know, it is a technology that is right now hot, but in some days, you know, it will go off. The idea is that it is surely going to stay here. The reason is we as humans right now and the systems that we are using, we are generating loads and loads of data, and that is not going to go back. Take example of Facebook, Yahoo, Amazon. The amount of data they generate is massive. And forget about those big companies, even small companies, you know, to make better decisions require a lot of data right now and a lot of data analysis. And Hadoop typically is a technology that helps you basically analyze those large data sets. So next few years, you know, Hadoop is really going to be the technology to be in. Along with that, there are a lot of ecosystem projects, and Hadoop is backed up by big companies like Yahoo, Facebook, Amazon. So a lot of activity is going to happen here. So with that, I welcome each one of you to this demonstration class, and let's get started. Let's see what we are going to cover in this course over the next 20 days, and what will be your takeaway as soon as you complete this course. So in this course, we are going to cover both administration and development. Hadoop being a complex system, like most technologies, most enterprise technologies, there are two dimensions to it. One is administration and another is development. So in this course, we are going to cover both of them. Let me just mute everyone. Yeah. So in this course, we are going to cover both Hadoop administration and development. Let's quickly run through a few of the most important topics in the whole schedule. So our week number 1 will really revolve around what is big data and what is exactly Hadoop. So first few days, we are continuously going to talk about, okay, just 1 minute. Yeah. So first week we are really going to concentrate about what is big data, what is Hadoop, and how Hadoop fits the whole landscape. So day 1 we would talk about big data, a few use cases of it, what a lot of companies are doing, the history of Hadoop and all that stuff. Day 2 we will talk about the Hadoop ecosystem. Now so Hadoop at core has two components, but a lot of people have written components on top of it, and that is what precisely we are going to cover on day 2. So you have something called Pig, Hive, Flume, Scoop, Uzi. So we'll just talk about these things on day 2. Day 3, I would be passing on a virtual machine to each one of you, and you guys can basically set that up. It's very easy. You just need a VM player and you know, bang, you're done. And VM player is free for Windows. For people who are on Mac OS, they can have VMware Fusion, which is paid software, but you can install it for like 30 days trial if you really wish to. So all your programs that you will be doing will stay with you on your laptop all the time. At the same time, this virtual machine will perfectly help you for doing practice even after the course. By the way, all the course that we do, we typically record the session also. So anytime you want to get back to any session, just feel free to let us know and we'll share the recording with you anytime. So should not be a problem. It'll be always there. Day 4, we will start, getting into some basic hands-on, where we'll talk about, running your MapReduce program, few things on Scoop and Flume. Again, it'll be hands-on. And day 5, we'll do the real job of setting up a multi-node cluster. Now we'll set up a multi-node cluster on Amazon, so we'll demonstrate the whole thing to you. So if you see, week number 1 is really focused on introducing you to Hadoop in general, talking about the ecosystem, doing some hands-on exercises, and setting up a multi-node cluster. So week 1, we typically say it's like scratching the surface, understanding a few things and how things are working. Week number 2, we first start with how do you start a Hadoop project. So that's called planning your Hadoop cluster. Now, a lot of companies that you guys might be working on, a lot of times your manager would come and say, hey, Hadoop is really hot. How do we really go about starting it? So day 6 would answer all your questions. How do you start? How do you go about setting up? How do you do capacity planning? So if your manager says, well, let's start a project, and you'll have to give him some numbers to tell how do we go about this, and day 6 will answer all your queries there. So for people who are exploring, Hadoop in terms of in their current roles or in their next roles, this will be the day where you will really understand how do you go about setting up a Hadoop project from ground up. Day 7, so that we've run one word count program, and we would be now diving deep into it and understanding how MapReduce programs are written. So Hadoop on a vague level, I'm sure everybody knows, can give you a lot of storage and processing capabilities. So MapReduce is something that will give you that processing capabilities, and we will be diving deep into it and understanding. So since from day 7, it is hardcore programming. So, but then you don't need to be a Java pro. Understanding any programming language would be good, because we are going to really talk about concepts and not about the syntax. So day 7, day 8, you will have a lot of MapReduce programming. Now, when it comes to data analysis, there are few industry standard use cases, and we would look at those use cases and see how industry has come up with solutions. In your job, if you are a programmer who needs to write a lot of MapReduce programs, day 9 would be it where you would find most of the answers to how do you go about doing something. So for developers, day 9 is really the key, day 9 and day 10. Day 11 and day 12 would be hardcore, hands-on MapReduce. So now we've spoken a lot about Hadoop, we've spoken a lot about programming, and 11 and 12 days where you really put that to practice. So you'll be writing programs in the class, and you'll be seeing how they work and understand the whole thing. So we'll be writing at least 3 programs in these 2 days, which will be coded from ground up for you guys. Okay. So by day 12, we are all set. We understand Hadoop, we understand how to plan a project, we understand the development part perfectly. Then we shift our focus to some more side projects or ecosystem projects of Hadoop, that is Pig and Hive, and we'll cover both of them in detail. Day 14, we'll have hands-on on Pig and Hive, and we'll end 3rd week with some advanced concepts like YARN, federation, authentication, and availability. So these are first 3 weeks where week 1 is Hadoop, week 2 is more of development, week 3 is some ecosystem projects with a lot of hands-on. Week 4 gets really deep into administration. So here, the next 5 days, what you learn is, let's say you know how to set up a Hadoop cluster, but how do you schedule it? So anybody who's an administrator, if they have multiple teams and they have one cluster, how they can go about capacity planning that particular cluster? How do they monitor the cluster? How do they set up, let's say, a tool like Ganglia, which will monitor all the cluster? 19th, we will talk about administration best practices. So this this day 19 would be a differentiator between, so you understanding administration and then performing the best practices. So that will make you kind of a pro where you are all set to do. Day 20 we'll have a 50 questions test where we'll have 20 questions on development, 20 on administration, and 10 on Hadoop in general. And on day 20 we'll wind up the class. So this is how probably we would go about it. Along with that, as you guys have already introduced yourself and gave some expectations, in between we'll find some space where we could discuss some real world use cases, what every company is doing around Hadoop. So maybe somebody who's working on MS Stack, this Microsoft Stack, we can on some of the days sit and discuss, let's say for like 20 minutes or 30 minutes as to what Microsoft is doing in Hadoop and how they are going about their things, and how somebody from Microsoft background can leverage Hadoop for their work. So we will always find time to discuss those things that are kind of personalized to your own career, or maybe if somebody wants to say we have space of some time, we could discuss, okay, this is the project we are doing, can big data be applied to this or not? So this is what we'll be overall doing this for the next 20 odd days in this course. Any questions before we move ahead? Does somebody have any question over the curriculum or something? I'll unmute everyone. So anybody wants to ask a question, feel free to just jump in and let me know.
Hi Ravi, this is Bala.
Yeah, hi Bala.
Do you give any guidance for Hadoop certification? Is there any certification exam?
Okay, so Hadoop, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. That is my question.
Yeah, so the idea is this, there are two certifications in Hadoop, Hadoop development and Hadoop administration, and I've done both the certifications of development and administration. Now, in the day 20, where we'll have this test, the test will be for 60 minutes, and another 60 minutes we will talk about what all certification options are there and how you can get certified. So these will be based on my real experiences on how I cleared certification, and I'll share that with you.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
How many hours class every day?
It will be 90 minutes every day. 1.5 hours.
What are the
Now,
timings?
Timings, Satish would be getting back with that.
Okay.
I have two questions. One is from Ravi. He says, is this a daily class? Yes, it is going to be daily class. Probably, I don't know, we'll have to see the schedule, but somewhere like Monday to Friday, so that you guys get to enjoy weekends, or we can have classes on weekend also. But then that is something Satish would basically sync up with you guys and look at what best works out for everyone. Mohini has a question. Is there a POC or a project at end of the training? In the hands-on, we are doing a very good mini POC where we are taking data from a relational database. We are putting into HDFS, and then we are moving it to Hive and start writing SQL queries on top of that data. So that is more like a mini POC where you are doing an end-to-end thing, putting something from RDBMS, putting it inside HDFS, then putting into Hive and writing queries on top of it. Yeah, I think there's a lot of disturbance. So can everybody unmute, and probably on chat you request me who wants to get. So can everybody mute themselves, and on chat I can just unmute one by one. All right. So I'm muting everyone. Dave has a question, so I'll just unmute him. Yeah, Dave, go ahead.
Two questions I have. Well, one question is, what are the prerequisites for it? Do you expect to have, our own server, and basically what operating system you're looking for, those kind of things?
Yeah, so sure. There are absolutely no prerequisites for this particular class. Just have one laptop that has at least 4 GB of RAM, which is just a standard. Everything else will be provided by us, everything. So as soon as you guys get enrolled, there'll be a welcome kit where you'll have the virtual machine, the hands-on exercises, and the material, and everything would reach you. And incrementally content would be coming to you. And everything will be set up on your laptop, and that stays with you. But otherwise, there are no prerequisites from a software or hardware side.
Like I have Windows 8. Is that work?
Anything that has a virtual machine player, it will work. So Windows, it will perfectly work. Absolutely.
Okay. And let's say if I have some trouble, and how do get the issues get resolved?
That we'll take care of. Please don't worry about it. So making sure that all the stuff works on your machine is something we'll take care of it.
One more question.
Sure, go ahead.
Are you working with Hadoop, or you already work? You still working with the Hadoop, or you have a practical experience with it?
Yeah, so I think in the next presentation I'll cover that. So just park that question for that. So I'll explain.
Okay, no problem. That's fine.
Yeah. All right. So
I mean, I just want to know the who. Sorry, that's fine.
Yeah. So let's first go one by one. Now, first person who's asked is Ravi. I'll unmute Ravi and we'll go one by one. Dev, if you could just mute yourself, or I'll mute you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Ravi, please go ahead with the question. Hello? Ravi, go ahead with the question. Hello? Okay. All right, we'll come back to Ravi. Shivali, please go ahead with the question if you have one. Just a minute, I'll unmute you, Shivali. Just a minute. Yeah. Shivali, please go ahead with the question. You can put it on chat box if you are what you call unable to get on the phone and discuss. No, Shivali, I cannot hear you. Seems you are on the phone and it is. Yeah, Shivali, please go ahead. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Now I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, so I have two questions. One is the security-related aspect of big data and the Hadoop.
Okay.
How and what are we covering in this course? And the second question I have is, so who is the best candidate to learn Hadoop? So I'm a PHP and a Java developer. Who is the best candidate you think to learn Hadoop?
Okay. So first question about the security. We are covering the Kerberos authentication in this what do you call sessions. Basically, that will tell you that how do you go about setting up Hadoop and what all security features are inbuilt for us. Second, so that security is definitely covered here. Second question, who's the best candidate? There are two types of, actually if you see there are 3 to 4 different types of guys who can learn. Somebody from a development background can pursue his career in Hadoop development. So basically somebody who's good at programming, be it any language, can pursue his career in, let's say, MapReduce, which works on Java. There is another language called Pig, and he can pursue, or he or she can pursue career in development side. Somebody who's a SQL developer or an Oracle developer, he can basically look to expertise in Hive and Pig. So Hive is more like a SQL query layer on top of Hadoop. People who are into business analysis, the best thing they could do from Hadoop perspective is learn data science. So the business analyst kind of guys would need to basically understand Hadoop, then understand data and make sense out of it. So that is, that is the what do you call? That is the career path they could pursue. So basically, it's a technology which has multiple dimensions. Based on what role you are in, you will have to, pursue in that particular direction. So take example that one of the website. Now a data scientist got a lot of data, which was tons of data. He analyzed and came up with a recommendation that, or with a this nugget of information that people who normally own a MacBook normally book hotels which are $20 more expensive. On one of the leading hotel book site, I think it's Airbnb or somewhere, where people book hotels when they travel, and the data scientist came up with that particular nugget of data after looking at a lot of data. So again, knowing Hadoop would help. and you have to really see which dimension you are in and pursue that particular area. Does that answer your question?
ఓపెన్ చేయవా కౌస్తు బాట్రా డోర్ ఓపెన్ చేశారు.
Yes,
So I
sir.
think
Yes, that answers my question.
Yeah. So for somebody from a development perspective, certainly Hadoop development would be good. Administration would be good. So we have Navnit. Navnit, please go ahead with your question. I am unmuting you. Hello? Yeah, Navnit, please go ahead. Navnit, please go ahead. Okay. Vamsi,
Hello?
you also had a... Yeah,
Hello?
go ahead.
Yeah, this is Navneet. So my question was like, to call it as a Hadoop developer, is it mandatory to know all the tools like Pig or OZ and everything? Because I'm from the ETL background. Most of my experience is in Informatica and Oracle.
Okay. So if you're from ETL background, you can skip MapReduce because that's like, hardcore programming stuff. But
Yeah.
if you're learning Hadoop and you say that you are in ETL background, you will have to learn Pig and Hive. Without that, it won't be considered that you know Hadoop. Because as I said that based on, let's say, if you're from ETL background, tools like Pig and Hive are built for ETL people because they were never finding it comfortable to express their programs in MapReduce, because MapReduce is a complex subject. So if you say it's ETL background, Pig and Hive has to be mastered.
Okay. So that means it depends upon the requirement company uses the tool, is it?
Exactly. So I'll tell you how it works. If you're writing hardcore algorithms, okay, hardcore algorithms could be machine learning algorithms, okay. There is no better alternative to MapReduce. But let's say you are a SQL developer or a ETL guy who wants to get data, transform something. Pig and Hive are much easier than MapReduce. So in Hive, you can just write your SQL queries and you're done. In Pig, it is more like crudely like a stored procedure where you can, basically load data, transform it, and basically load put it to the data sink, that is the destination. So from an ETL background, if at all you're looking for a better career perspective, Hive and Pig are must. Otherwise, it won't be even. You won't even qualify for that. So MapReduce you can skip. You should just know the concepts of it. Pig and Hive are something that will take it to the next level.
Okay. So here the target, when you say the target can be Hadoop, is it? So
It is Hadoop.
It is
Hadoop. Yes.
So source also can be Hadoop, as well the target also can be Hadoop.
Yeah, of course it can be.
So maybe like in a simple line, we can say Hadoop is a kind of database, like Oracle database, something like that, with advanced architecture.
We can say it is a data store which can store data, but comparing it with Oracle would be not the right thing, but yeah, that will get clear. But crudely you can say it's a data store.
Yeah, okay, yeah, sounds good.
It's a data
store.
Yeah. Vamsi, you had a question? Yeah, Vamsi, you had a question? Okay. Vamsi says, will we be giving recordings every day? Yes. As soon as the class is over, the recording will be uploaded at a shared location, and you will have all the recordings. And yeah, as soon as the class gets over, in couple of hours, based on the internet speed, the content would reach you, and you can revise it whenever you want it. Ravi says, do I need to have prior knowledge of file systems, networking, and all that stuff? No. Okay. You can absolutely start as a beginner. As I said that every individual has his own takeaway. Okay, so when we do a Hadoop course, let's say somebody who's from a business analysis part, they may not be really, they should just know what programming they do, but overall their real goal has to be how do you make sense out of the data that is in Hadoop. Similarly, based on your background, you will need to know some thing in that. So if you're an administrator and you are joining this course with a perspective that you will set up a multi-node cluster and do administration, you should have some knowledge of Linux. If you're a developer, you should know some part of programming as a general concept, not like Java or PHP. So, you know, it depends on really what is your, background, and you should have some knowledge on top of it. You don't have to be a pro, but that is what is required. Yeah, so that was, Nutan asks, now Hadoop is really a huge topic, and can this be covered in 30 hours? Yes, it can be certainly covered in 30 hours. We have well-defined courses, we have well-defined hands-on, and it will take you to a level where you can get started at your work. And that's when your real on-the-job work would start. But 30 hours are certainly enough for, it's not actually 30, it's 30 plus hours, but that will be absolutely enough for, you can just get started with that, yeah. And again, every course that we really take, it's a way to facilitate that we start our work. So when, let's say, we take an administrator course, we see a multi-node cluster setup, monitoring and scheduling, then, we can get to our work, schedule the whole thing, build it up, and then start writing code on it. So, the training would really satisfy you from that particular perspective. So Vamsi asks, how many students have I trained in Hadoop so far? I'll be answering that in the next presentation. Just park that question for. Balakrishna asks, do we give material to read and learn? Yes, you will have all the materials in PDF files that you will get. You will have virtual machines. Also, you'll have the videos that get recorded. So you have everything with you. Yeah. Business analyst, SQL, ETL reporting. Business analyst, SQL, ETL reporting, background person, which topic do they need to concentrate more? Anybody from ETL, Pig and Hive are must. So concentrate during the class. We will talk about Pig and Hive, and then the more you explore that, the chances of exploring better opportunity really increases. Somebody from reporting, yeah, Pig and Hive are your best friends. So look no further. Then I have just 1 minute. I see questions. Yeah, okay. So now we're doing good in questions. Okay. So will we introduce ETL tools that Hadoop uses? Yes, Pig and Hive are more like the ETL tools, which we'll talk about it in the course. And we will also see there is a special section which tells you where exactly Hadoop fits in the ETL world or in an enterprise. So we'll certainly cover that on day 6. Somebody asks, how does Hadoop differ from Cassandra, MongoDB, and CouchDB? CouchDB, Cassandra, MongoDB, they are NoSQL databases, whereas Hadoop is more like a distributed storage. So they are different in their own ways. So I think in one of the sections we will discuss how it is different from NoSQL databases. All right, Navneet, are there any other distributed storage other than Hadoop? See, a lot of companies are coming up with their alternatives, but so far there is no direct competitor to Hadoop. Hadoop is slightly different because if you see, every open source project that was ever built, so we had a commercial product and somebody took that and built an open source product. But in Hadoop, there is no commercial competitor at all so far. And big players like Oracle and Microsoft, they probably decided to develop something like Hadoop, but later on they decided to leverage it. So if you see Oracle's Exadata or Microsoft's Hadoop, they both have Hadoop inside it and they are packaging the product. So as of now, nothing has come in media so far that somebody is developing a competitor to Hadoop. Oracle is using Hadoop inside Exadata. Microsoft is using Hadoop in Azure. But so far, no, news is around somebody developing a hardcore competitor to Hadoop. No, Cloudera is not a commercial product. see, the idea is this. You have Linux, which is free, and you have Red Hat that enhances Linux and sells you the support. Similarly, Cloudera takes Hadoop, which is free, they package it nicely, they solve some bugs, and they give you some more packages. They give you everything for free. Support is what they charge you for, and few other tools that they charge you for. But otherwise, what Cloudera does is it takes Hadoop, it improves it a bit, stabilizes it a bit more, and then it gives you back for free. For infrastructure and middleware admins, the whole administration class we will talk about, how to set up a multi-node cluster and how to monitor that, schedule jobs and all that stuff. All right, Sonali needs to sign off. We have a small class which we'll do. Now, what is the difference between cloud computing and Hadoop? We'll talk about it. When you say Azure, it's cloud computing, right? Anyone can use Hadoop if they are providing cloud computing, right? Please correct me if I'm wrong. So that's Ravi. So see, Hadoop is like a storage. Okay. If you're doing it in your company, you buy 5 servers and you set up Hadoop on top of it, you're good. Okay. And if you don't want to buy servers and buy storage and everything on cloud, then you're using it on cloud. So Hadoop and cloud are, what do you call, two different things. All right, we'll kind of park the questions for now. Let's quickly look at a small demo, and then we can, take the questions further. All right. So now this is a whole presentation, and we will just cover a part of it, and then we can, take the questions after this. All right. So this is like kind of our first couple of days. This thing we'll just cover a few parts. So we'll start with a small introduction. We'll talk about what is big data. We'll talk about what is Hadoop. We'll talk about Hadoop ecosystem. We'll talk about a deeper dive into HDFS and MapReduce. And we'll take a lot of questions. So that's what is the best part of any course anyways. So let's start with a small introduction. What we are going to cover is what is big data. We'll introduce big data. We'll introduce Hadoop to you. Explain how Hadoop works. So we'll explain you how exactly Hadoop works. Get friendly with stuff like HDFS and MapReduce. Get aware about Hadoop ecosystem and understand how Hadoop is used in the real world. A small introduction about myself. My name is Ravi. I have 7+ years of IT experience, 2 years of corporate training experience. I'm Cloudera certified Hadoop developer and Cloudera certified Hadoop administrator. I'm also certified on technologies like Cloudera, as I've already said. I'm Sun certified Java professional programmer and web developer, and I'm Zen certified PHP programmer. So in few days, I'm already taking a certification on HBase. So yeah, soon we'll be talking about HBase also. All right, so this is my profile. And as far as somebody had a question of how many batches I have taken and how many students I have taught, so far I have taken in past 1 year full-fledged, I have taken around 15 batches, and like more than 120 odd students is what I have taught. Majorly I teach students in United States, and in other times I typically do corporate trainings for companies in India. So what is big data? Now, before we really talk about what is big data, let's first get into why big data is really so important. Let's first talk about that. I mean, early morning in India and late evening in United States, we all are up to discuss big data. Let's see why it is so important. Now, as per IDC, big data market will be $24 billion by 2016. So in the next 3 years, this whole market would be $24 billion. That's a lot of money. Big data would create 4.4 million jobs by 2015. In next 2 years, we would have 4.4 million jobs. And as of today, as of this moment, there is a shortage of around 200,000 big data professionals in United States alone. So we are not talking about other countries, only United States. The shortage is in tune of 200,000 professionals. So let's talk about what is big data. So big data is any data, in the most layman terms, big data is any data that is beyond the size of processing or storage capabilities of a single physical machine. So if you have all the money on earth, the best hardware you can buy today is typically 64 terabytes of hard disk and a 64 gigabytes of RAM. But let's say, what if you have data which is in tunes of 300 terabytes? One machine really cannot handle it. So the first and most important characteristics of big data is a lot of data. That's called volume. Along with that, we have other two things, that is variety and the velocity. We'll talk about it. So variety means, so far we all have been programmed since our college days that data means something that is stored in a row and column format in a database. But things have started changing. You know, a lot of systems today expect data to be analyzed from JSONs, XMLs, log files. So when we say big data, first thing that automatically comes to our mind is volume. The second thing is variety. So, you know, you may be analyzing data from a tweet or a log or an XML. And the third thing is velocity. Now, if you just have a lot of volume, you can, you know, wait and analyze the data. Variety of sources, you know, can be handled in any typical Java programming model. You really don't need big data for that. But the real problem is also velocity. So take example of Facebook. In 1 hour, how much data would they be generating? It would be like terabytes of data. So the third dimension of big data is velocity, where data really gets to generated too fast. So before we come to this, let's first see this slide. This is a very crude representation of what is big data. So any data that is beyond the storage and processing capability of a single physical machine, its volume. Data comes to you with an amazing speed. So data gets generated really fast. That's velocity. And data comes to you from variety of sources. Can be weblogs, can be tweets, and that's what we call it as variety. So in a very crude way, big data is any data that has a lot of volume, comes to you with an amazing velocity, and comes from variety of sources, is typically named as big data. Let's look at those three characteristics in a textual way. So volume, for data to be referred as big data, generally the volume of data has to be massive. Second, variety. For data to be referred as big data, generally the data has to be semi-structured and may originate from variety of sources in variety of formats. Can be JSONs, XMLs, log files, whatnot, and can be sources like your climate sensor to, you know, anything and everything. Velocity. For data to be referred as big data, the rate at which data comes to you in your system has to be really fast. Otherwise, you know, you might not want to invest in big data at all. So we've kind of seen this representation of big data. Now, over the period of time, while I've been teaching a lot of students, they always had a few fantastic questions after they would know about big data. What I've done is I've compiled a couple of slides on, you know, those most logical questions. Now, a lot of people, okay. Any questions so far on big data before we really go to the next one? No questions? All right. So a lot of people, after, you know, understanding big data, they say, all right, big data is really clear, but how does this data really look like? Where does it store? How does it look like? The answer is that there is no defined set as to how big data looks like. Big data can look anything like an RFID systems generated file, a weblog, can be user interaction log, user transaction history, user tweet list, or even climate sensor data. Fine. So all this data is there. What do we do with this data? Analyze it. So the next logical question people ask is, what's the value in taking pain of analyzing this data? Now this data isn't in my database. All my transactional data is secured, safely stored in database. But why do I take a pain of analyzing so many log files and interaction logs and stuff like that? The answer is clear. In this huge heap of data, there are golden nuggets of information that can give your business an unfair advantage. Now let's take example of Amazon.com. Okay. Now if you've been browsing a couple of, okay, we have a question here. We have a question saying tweets will not have any structure. How do we capture this data? So tweets typically when you talk to a Twitter API, they give you the output in XML or a JSON format. So when we say that we need to analyze tweets, we are typically analyzing JSON, which is again semi-structured, but it does have structure which can be broken down in a Java program and analyzed basically. So while tweets appear to have no structure when you look at them at first, but the files that you get from Twitter, they are typically in JSON or XML format. So you can certainly have tweets in that structure and parse them. All right. So next, so take example that you go to, okay, so we have one more question. What is an RFID file? So take example, you have RFID tags. I'll give you one example. Let's say a lot of leading retailers have RFID tags, so that people don't take away things without paying for them. So RFID tag would basically be used to locate things. On products, you would normally see that. So if you go to a leading retailer and try to come out of the shop without paying, the RFID tag would alert the system that, hey, I'm still with this guy and I'm going out of the system. He hasn't paid for it so far. So RFID tag, so all this information that RFID tags and RFID systems generate is stored in RFID files kind of a thing, which can be analyzed later on. So maybe something like how many in last week, how many products were misplaced in our store and RFIDs alerted us. Now this can tell you how organized your store is. So let's say last week there were around 450,000 products that were supposed to be in a certain shelf, but they were somewhere else, and we used RFID to figure that out. So that tells that the staff in the retail store may not be really organized about where the products should be. So this is how RFID tags are typically used by. All right, so we go to, so take example that you go to Amazon.com and you browse for a couple of games. Now Amazon starts figuring out that, hey, this guy coming from this machine is really interested in gaming. Now what Amazon does is it builds recommendations on top of it. Next time when you go, it starts giving you all the recommendations that are around gaming. So all this data isn't stored in a relational database. They have a lot of log files. They crunch them and they build a profile around you. Let's say you sign into Amazon and you purchase something which is like a baby product. Now Amazon figures out that, okay, this person with this account has purchased something to do with baby products. It builds the profile around, and you see all the recommendations next time which are around baby products to make sure that you get more personalized experience. And most of the times Amazon succeeds in selling you something that you never wanted. Just because you see it, you start feeling that, okay, I need it, and you end up buying it. Devendra says my voice is breaking. Is it clear right now or it's still breaking, so that I could hold for a minute and see? Can everybody hear me clearly? If you guys could put on chat box yes or no, that will be great. Or anybody who has faced a breakage, that will be, I'll just basically stop for a minute. All right. All right, seems yeah, it's most of you are able to hear it. All right, Dave also says it's clear now. Awesome. So then most of the times, people end up buying stuff. I think Facebook is a fantastic example of, how they are targeting or advertising. Now, this is a real use case that happened to a friend of mine. So he had a baby boy, and he put his photographs, and people started congratulating him. Now, in some way, Facebook figures that out, and on his right side, he gets an ad of a Mumbai-based startup, an Indian-based startup, where your photographs get engraved on a wooden block. Okay, so the ad read that engrave your baby's photograph on this beautiful block. Now he clicks that ad, goes to the website, and figures out there is a proper website that can give you all those services, and at one shot he made a purchase of 3,200. Now imagine this: Facebook knows who you are, what's going in your life, and then they send you ads which are really personal to you, and who knows, you may end up buying it. Now, analyzing this data can really give your business an unfair advantage. Imagine this whole facility was not there. Facebook won't have been able to maybe analyze who you are and give you personalization. So a lot of big businesses are using this in their own ways to benefit their business. And typically they say nowadays, content is the queen, and content is the king, and data is the queen. So if you have data, if you can analyze it, you are miles ahead or light years ahead of your competition. So that's why as I said, big data is no more a buzzword. It is real, because it can seriously convert technology into dollars. Basically use technology and convert into serious dollars. And a lot of big players have already done it. A lot of small players are now trying to figure out how they can leverage it. So there's a lot of space for each one of us, and it's an exciting space to be in. I am getting few questions, but let's complete this quickly. We have another 4 or 5 slides before we take questions, and we can then call it a day and probably catch up sometime later. Can you give us some use cases of analyzing big data? Yeah, there are few industry case studies. Identifying customers who are most important, identifying the best time to perform maintenance, analyzing your brand's reputation on social media. So now let's look at these use cases one by one. Now we say identifying customers who are most important. It's a no-brainer that any CRM would give you the facility, but there are few more dimensions to it if you really want to get deeper. Let's say you want to figure out. So there are 2 types of important customers. Let's say you go to Amazon and you buy something which is very defined, and there isn't a very big profit margin for Amazon. And then there are certain products that have real value. So you have a customer who buys traditional stuff which has low margin for Amazon, and he buys it in a year for $100,000. And then there is another customer who just purchases for $50,000, but he purchases goods which are really high value in terms of margin. Now, what if Amazon wants to really change their algorithm and figure out who are the customers who are most profitable to my company? Or maybe, do some more analysis on top of it, and, basically match their browsing history with their purchase history, and do so many things to really come up with data that can be amazing. So maybe something like, this guy, this age group 20 to 25 from New York is really interested in these products in this week. So it can give you, so many permutations and combinations that you can play with it and, start positioning yourself in a better way. And there is no limit to it. And that is where business analysts and data scientists are people who come into picture. So in Hadoop, the technical guys would basically store the data, write programs on top of it, and store it in another database, from where the data scientists start looking at the data, start querying the data, and give you those nuggets of information. So this is how this whole ecosystem is playing together. How can such huge data be analyzed? Now that's the most important question. Fine, we understand that big data is like terabytes and terabytes of data. One machine cannot take care of it. How do you really go about analyzing such a huge data? Now, As the volume is beyond processing and storage ability of a single physical machine, we need to have some distributed way in place, some way. We are not talking about what way. We need to make sure that few machines or few thousand machines should be able to work together to achieve our goal, because the storage is really huge. Now, a very brilliant student of mine said, and I've really quoted him exactly that way, wait, distributed systems like MPI have been around for more than a decade. We've been learning about this in colleges. We all know there is something called distributed computing already in place. So do we even need to take this course further? Does the world really need another distributed system? So this gentleman is an architect in one of the big Indian companies, and he point blank asked me this question. So does the world really need another distributed system? Does world really need another way to make machines work together to achieve a common goal? The answer is yes, it does need another way of, distributing the data and distributing the processing or distributing the workload. Now let's look at the typical old distributed computing frameworks. So if you see 10 years, 15 years before, distributed computing, really became popular. Today it's not very popular because it has a lot of challenges and it never became a household technology. So let's see how typically distributed systems work. Take example that you have 10 terabytes of data. You'll store them in a SAN. It's a storage area network that is virtually can give you loads of storage. Now you as a programmer will write typically a Java program that will run on multiple machines and analyze this data in bits and pieces. So take example, we have 10 terabytes or let's say 3 terabytes of data and we have 3 application servers. So each Java program would read 1 terabyte of data. So first it will talk to the SAN, get 1 terabyte of data, analyze it, write the output back. Same the other guy will do, same the other guy would do. So look at this. Programs run on each app server in this case. All the data is on storage area network. Before execution, each server gets the data from SAN, and after execution, each server writes the output to the SAN. So this is how a typical distributed system works. And this has been around for 15 years. I mean, it has been there, it has been used by some big companies. It's now never become popular, but yeah, it's been there. So why are we talking about another distributed system? Why are we even thinking of taking a class? Let's see. Now, this typical distributed system had some issues. First, there is a huge dependency on network. Second, scaling up and scaling down is not a smooth process. So if you look at the previous example, every time you run a program, 1 terabyte of data has to be read, analyzed, and wrote back. So network becomes a bottleneck. Scaling up and scaling down is not a smooth process. So let's say today your program is running on 3 machines. What if I say, okay, run the same program on 200 machines? You will have to make some modifications to your code to make sure that your program now runs on 200 machines. Partial failures are very, very difficult to handle in typical distributed system. So if you're running a program on 200 machines, what if 77th node goes down? You will, as a programmer, it will be your responsibility to bring that up and make sure that the output is not lost. Just a minute, I had a question, so we will take questions at the end only. Yeah. A lot of processing power is spent on transporting data. So if you see, a lot of processing power is spent on reading the data and then writing it back. Now when 200 machines, let's say, are working together, each machine should know what other machine is doing, because that is how you are going to basically combine the output. So basically, if it's a 200 node cluster, each machine should know what, let's say, machine number 1 should know what machine number 197 is doing. Now, if you really see the real problem, as a programmer, your manager says you to write business logic, and you are ending up tackling issues like how to scale up, scale down, how to handle partial failures, which is not really part of your business logic. And you are spending 60% of your time handling failures and not writing business logic. And that is one of the reason distributed computing never took off, absolutely never took off. Few big companies use it, but it has never become a household name so far. So this is the typical problems with distributed system, and like whole world in trouble and Spider-Man comes and saves, Hadoop comes in. So typically a distributed systems had their issues, and Hadoop is a new kind of a distributed system that takes care of all these issues. So far we've seen what is a typical distributed system, what is big data, why big data is important. So we've covered this topic. That's about it from the demonstration perspective. So when we have full class, the next topic would be what is big data, what is Hadoop, and we'll cover those things. So we are open for questions. Feel free to type in your questions in the chat window, and we shall do our best to answer them. All right, we already have a few questions. So the first question is, did we have CRM software before? Didn't we have data which were doing the same? Yes, so CRM, so this is Chandrasekhar who's asked this question. Yes, CRM softwares are really there. The problem is the data is still stored in a database. Okay, databases are good for storing a few terabytes of data. Now assuming that you want to build a user's profile on for your company, so basically what he's purchased, what he writes about you on Twitter, Facebook, and all his transaction, you are anywhere dealing with 300 terabytes of data, let's say. Now 300 terabytes, no CRM in this world would take care for you. So the very reason big data exists is the databases have somewhere hit the upper cap and said, okay, we cannot handle data more than that, and that's where big data came into picture. So if a single beefy node of Oracle is taking care of everything, you really don't need big data, even in your organization. If you're dealing with, let's say, 300 gigabytes of data, don't even think of big data. Big data really comes into picture when you're really dealing with, let's say, 500 terabytes of data, because the Oracle will not be able to handle that much data for you. So somebody's asked, yeah, is the data reading asynchronous? I am not getting that question, so Ravi, if you could type in some more details. Yeah, Chandrasekhar wants to get unmuted. Sure, just give me a minute, Chandrasekhar. We'll just take one more question and we'll unmute you. Now somebody said, what is the difference between HDFS and HBase? Okay, HBase is more like, I would say, more like an Oracle database built on top of HDFS. Okay, and HDFS is a file system. It has nothing to do with database or something. So HBase is more like a database actually. So we have Chandrasekhar. Yeah, Chandrasekhar, you're already unmute, Chandrasekhar. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so my question is, somewhere during the class you mentioned something about Azure and other implementations of Hadoop, right? Like Cloudera and other vendors or other vendors who are implementing Hadoop. So like if my company decides to implement Hadoop, so again, it's a question of build versus buy, right? So what is the industry currently doing? I mean, like okay, put up 4 or 5 servers and then start implementing Hadoop, or go out there in the market and see like, okay, these guys are giving this, so we'll buy that. So what is the industry doing currently?
Honestly, it really depends on everyone's situation. I'll answer it in a different way. Let's say you are not sure whether Hadoop is right tool for you or not. Okay. Let's say you are in a stage where you are not sure whether this is the tool for you. Okay. Then makes no sense to buy 10 servers and install everything in-house. Then going for a cloud is a much better idea. Now suddenly you come to the next level where you are sure this is the tool and you want to get married to Hadoop, that next 5 years I'm going to use this. You're so sure of it. Then it makes sense to buy those servers, because you would not want to have See this data, your log data, your tweet, this, that. The data we are talking about is your hardcore customer data. Few companies may never be comfortable putting it on cloud. Okay.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
depending on the stage you are, you will be deciding that particular thing. And there's no thumb rule as such. People in a stage where they are exploring it, they will certainly go for cloud. Why? Because I'll show you during this class. We go to Amazon, we just say I need 2 machines of 8 gigabytes RAM. We get that in like say 90 seconds. Comparing to, let's say, if you wanted to explore Hadoop in your organization, you wanted to get 2 servers for provisioning, you would at least have to wait for 2 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So,
yes.
It really depends on where you are in the stage of the project. Now, let's say you're a service-based company, and you are catering to a customer who's already aware of Hadoop and knows he wants to use Hadoop. He may come up and say, you know what, I want you to, take care of my Hadoop implementation. That time you may just buy the hardware and you may not go to the cloud. Or you may be just asking the customer to set it up for you so that you can play with it. So, it really boils down to where you stand in your project right now.
Right. Okay, thanks.
And it is less of technology, more of a business thing as to, the business will decide whether it's worth investing as of now or not.
Right.
Okay. So
yeah.
Then we have, Then we have a question from Srivali. If you want to have data from Twitter, Facebook, are there any tools available? There are a lot of people who have written implementations of it, and you can directly plug and play, and you can get stuff from Facebook or Twitter. So, you getting that data, there are a lot of APIs already available, but yeah, there isn't a direct tool which will do this for you. Not that I'm aware of. There might be somebody who's written open source implementation where you would say, okay, this is my Facebook ID, pull all the data and store it this way. There would be some implementations. So I think what I can do is I can explore more about whether these tools are there, but to my knowledge, you will have to do it on your own. Now, Mohini says, you said that it looks like we need to spend more time after each class to understand, is it possible to... Satish would be the best guy to answer that question, Mohini. Since we are reading across multiple machines in Hadoop, when we write MapReduce algorithm, does it read from machines in parallel or reads one after the other? It's completely parallel. So in the class we'll cover that. Yeah. Ravi, you have a question which I've answered. Mohini, you had a question about timings and the scheduling. Satish would get back to you on this. Yeah. Wow, so many questions. I'm loving it. Vamsi, will big data replace traditional databases? No, not at all. If you see traditional databases, they are fantastic for random reads. So you query an Oracle database, it can give you an answer in, let's say, 2 seconds, in 1 second at times, in fraction of second at times. But when you talk of Hadoop, it is a data analysis tool. It is more crudely like a data, data warehouse kind of a thing. Where even the smallest of program may take somewhere around 5 seconds. The minimum program that you write will take 5 seconds. So that's why you can't use Hadoop for transactional thing. Hadoop is more like a data analysis tool. It will never replace your databases. Not in near future, the way it is designed. Yeah, so anybody who had questions on, the timings, the commercial, the scheduling, please drop an email to Satish on this email address, and you will be able to, get all the details. We have another question which says, is big data only a concept? Big data, yes, it is a concept, and to achieve that, you use tools like Hadoop. Okay, so big data is more of an ecosystem or a problem that how do I analyze so much of data? And Hadoop is the tool that lets you do that. Or I think in a better way we would say big data is more like a domain, and Hadoop is a tool that gets you through that domain. Is there any limit to big data? As of now, you can say it's virtually infinite. You can typically have one machine storing 24 terabytes of data, and in existing version of Hadoop, you can go to 4,000 nodes. So that is 24 terabytes into 4,000 nodes is the amount of storage that you can get. The newest version, Cloudera and Hortonworks have come up with some enhancements where you can have a 10,000 node cluster. So that means 24 terabyte into 10,000 nodes is the amount of storage that you have, which is a lot of storage. Yes, there is a concept of archiving. You can archive it inside Hadoop only, but otherwise, yeah, you don't need to separately archive something, because 24 terabyte into 10,000 machines is like, I think we are talking about what you call, I think 200 million terabytes, or yeah, 20 million terabytes or something. You need not archive something. It can just stay there without any worries. So which part would be the most challenging and consuming process, I believe, in terms of this course? If you're a developer, you will feel home during what do you call the development classes, and you might find slightly out of the place when you're playing with Linux from the administration perspective. If you're an administrator who's not done much of programming, you may find slightly hard following the development classes, but we'll be helping you. And administration would be a cakewalk for you, because you already know Linux and monitoring tools. So it again boils down to this thing. Now, what is the most challenging and time-consuming process of implementing Hadoop? Writing the programs. So the question is, what is the most complex part and time-consuming part in setting up Hadoop? Setting up a multi-node cluster and maintaining it is the easy part. Finding programmers who can express problems in a distributed way is very tough. So take example of search. Okay. Today, if I was to tell you that write a program that will search something in Java, it's an easier bet to write, or easier deal to do. But write a program to search something in Hadoop, you'll have to express problems in different way, assuming your code can run on 1,000 machines. So you'll have to express your problems in MapReduce. So the most challenging part is to take typical problems and think of them in terms of distributed computing and express them. That is the real challenging part, and that's where a lot of companies are looking for programmers and seeing what they can do with it. So right now that is a part which is extremely challenging. You have a few more questions here. So as a developer in Hadoop world, what is the typical things that you would be developing? You would be developing programs that would play with a lot of data. And what data can be any type of data that your business demands, and typically what you will do with the data will be defined by your data scientist. So if a data scientist comes to you and says, I have terabytes of data to analyze traffic of San Francisco, he'll give you the data, and he'll give you the algorithm basically to tell you what he wants out of it. So maybe he wants to say, tell me the traffic progression on Golden Gates for every 1 hour. So then you need to express that programmatically. So that's what will be the thing that you'll be developing typically. I am a .NET Java developer. What tools I should concentrate in Hadoop ecosystem? Most importantly, MapReduce. So if you are a .NET and Java developer and you are a hardcore developer, MapReduce would take you places. There is a huge shortage of people in the market who can express problems in Map and Reduce. Okay, that is crux of the thing. If you can express problems in MapReduce, you are already into the big league. It's slightly tough. There are fantastic books around it. We will cover that to a lot of detail, but there are a few books that you can refer and really get to the next level of it. How does somebody search some video file? Is it using metadata? Yes, it will be using metadata only. So you have all the metadata related to video. You will put that in your files in Hadoop, and then you can use search algorithms to search something. Yeah, any more questions? Yeah, you can store any data, be it your actual data or metadata, on the same place. Just that your program has to decide what it wants to play with.
Yes, Ravi, thanks for your demo, Ravi. I think we are fine with the demo. So we can do one thing, Ravi.
Sure.
We'll just check with all the candidates and we can finalize the timings. I think some people joined late, so I just wanted to send them the recorded session. I think Rajesh joined late, some people joined late, so Steve and some other person. So I just wanted to send them the recorded session. So if any other technical question, you can speak to Ravi, everyone.
Yeah, sure. Just wanted to thank everyone for their time. I think it's late in the evening and you guys have, decided to spend 1 hour with us. Thanks a lot. And I hope you had good time in the session. Looking forward to, have you to the class. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining, everyone. Yeah.
Thanks,
Good night.
Thanks
Take
a lot.
care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Yeah.